Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ja. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, and I know it's been a while, but of course, I know we're all back now. And then today's going to be a little bit different. I know we haven't talked about NBA all season, and we're kind of in late December now, but I feel like it's the right time to talk about it, and we'll jump right into it. So we got a lot of topics that we're going to talk about tonight in regards to the NBA season that's gone on so far. But of course, before we jump into all that, temperature check, how's everybody doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. I think the NBA season's probably been one of the better ones in recent years, of course, with the in-season tournament, but just the product in general. I think Adam Silver's done a great job with it. So, I mean, I've enjoyed it a lot. I think compared to the NFL, I feel like the NFL product this year isn't as good as it's been. But of course, we just got to wait till the playoffs.
In-season tournament champs, baby. My Lakers, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Silver, give us an extra banner to host up. We got a little silver added to the collection. We chilling. You know what I'm saying? Lakers on the good little path right now. I feel like we can fix up a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. I feel like, offensively, we're finding our shape. We're getting guys back healthy, and season's going good so far. I'm enjoying my hoops. There's a lot of young teams right now, a lot of young players that are hooping, that are going to work. So very enjoyable season.
I know Kobe would be really disappointed seeing that you guys put up an in-season tournament banner in the house that he built, man. So, but overall, though, I do agree with you guys. The product so far this year, these first month and a half of the NBA season has been amazing. Usually, the first 2 weeks don't necessarily tell the truth about everybody in the league, but now since we're closer to late December, early January on the way, we're starting to figure out, who are the real serious playoff contenders, who are championship contenders, and things of that nature. But overall, I've enjoyed watching basketball. And let's go ahead and jump right into it right now with our first topic being the Memphis Grizzlies. Man, oh man, I've been waiting to talk about these guys for about a couple of weeks now, but we waited for this specific day, knowing that Ja Morant is coming back to this team today when this episode drops. And a couple months ago, I sat here in front of you guys and I told you guys that these guys will not have a above 500 record when Ja Morant returns. And right now the Memphis Grizzlies sit with a record of 6-19. I was told I was contradicting myself, saying things like, well, the Memphis Grizzlies are a good team without Ja Morant, and now I'm saying the opposite. They're not going to be a good team without him. And now they're only able to win about 6 games out of the 25. They're a bottom 7 team in the NBA right now, but since everything is so close right now, they do have an opportunity to make the play-in tournament. But my question to you guys, number one, is what happened to the Memphis Grizzlies going above 500?
I think there's just been like a compounded amount of absences. We thought just the Ja Morant absence could be filled in with the addition of Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard and try to help them keep them afloat with Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. But it's just been too many absences. They lost a guy in Dylan Brooks who wasn't the best offensive player, but gave him a lot of help defensively. He's one of the better defenders in the entire league. And then, of course, on top of that, Brandon Clark is still recovering from that injury. Steven Adams has been missing Ja Morant on top of all of that. And then now for the last 2 or 3 weeks, Marcus Smart has been injured. Luke Kennard's been injured. So it's just a compounded amount of absences. They lost Tyus Jones in free agency. I mean, in the trade for Marcus Smart. So it's been a lot of absences, I think, that just have been added on top of the Grizzlies. At some point, it was going to come back to bite them that Ja Morant was missing games. We thought, I came in thinking, maybe they can get away with winning 10, 11 games while Ja's out. And then from there on out, Ja would help them to play in push or a playoff push, whatever it may be. But at this point, it's tough for them. They sit out with 6 wins, but this team, they have the pieces in Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane who've been playing phenomenal this season. I don't think the record has really reflected that, but they've both been awesome this season. I think especially for Desmond Bane, if someone gave him an all-star case, I would 100% agree with that because the guy's been playing phenomenal. He's been, ever since he came into this league, he's improved his game year in and year out. But it's really just the absences that have been killing the Grizzlies. Just too many injuries, too many holes that they haven't filled. A lot of guys that are playing minutes that are from the G League that shouldn't even be the rotation. Jake LaRavia, Vince Williams, just a lot of guys that just don't fit this team. So Ja being back is a needed thing for this team. They need that lift, man.
They really need this lift from Ja. I kind of looked at the outcome of the season. I thought Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bain, Marcus Smart was going to contribute a little bit, but the realization, Steven Adams is still out of the game. Brandon Clark is still hurt. Marcus Smart getting injured down the stretch, and them just plugging in a bunch of people coming off of G League, coming off the bench and stuff like that. I still expected Jared Jackson and Desmond Bain to at least get 10, 11 wins. Those guys are getting paid big money to come into to this team and carry this team when Ja's out like this. And honestly, those two haven't really shown much, with Ja being out. I feel like these two guys, you pay them this amount of money to be your second best player, your third best player, and you can't even scratch off 5 wins without your best player being in the lineup. And it's been almost 21, 22, 23 games. It's very, very tough. So expectations, they went below the line for the first couple weeks of the season until now. Ja's gonna come back. I do expect Ja to, come in and start hooping immediately. I feel like this the push they need. They need their captain. They need their leader back, and it's not too late for them to make a playoff run. There's a lot of ass teams in the West right now, in the bottom tier right now, so they got opportunity to push for a playing spot, and we'll see what Ja does. A lot of people have been speaking on his name. We'll see how he comes back, how he performs.
I could just hear like the sorrow in you guys' voices right now. You guys, the disappointment. Like, come on, man. Like you guys knew what the situation was going into the season, knowing that they're going to be missing guys that left in free agency, like guys like Tyus Jones and guys like Dylan Brooks. You knew the injuries that were on the table. Brandon Clark didn't start the season. Steven Adams got injured before the start of the season. So even with knowing all of that information, you guys still willingly came out here and said 15-10 and 14-11 at worst. And so none of this surprised me. At the end of the day, I told you guys that 25 consecutive games, night in and night out without Ja Morant, it's just going to be tough to muster up some wins here and there. And they're only able to get 6. Right now, they're on about a 5-6 game losing streak, just losing tonight to Oklahoma City. And so nothing really to surprise myself about in the situation. But like I mentioned earlier, in the Western Conference, everything is so relatively close. And with Ja Morant coming back tomorrow, there is some room for a playoff push. There is some room for at least a play-in push. As of right now, the Clippers sit at 16-10, and all the other teams that are in the play-in race have about 14 or 13 wins at the least. And so, all it takes honestly is about maybe a 6-7 game win streak. Probably got to be a lot of these teams along the way, and have these teams drop out of the race for a little bit. But there is some opportunity for the Memphis Grizzlies to make a play-in push. And so my second question to you guys would be, what is the expectation, for the Memphis Grizzlies? What is the outlook for them for the rest of the season now that Ja Morant will be back?
I think just for them, they just want to get into the playing game as it stands now. And the Grizzlies, I fully trust them if they're going into a playing game. I think I like them over anybody just because of Ja Morant's repeated history in the playing game. I think he's shown the ability to perform there. And I trust that the fact that if they're able to at least land a spot in there, that gives them a fighting chance against anybody. And so I think that's the expectation for them now. I mean, he missed 25 games. At this point on, they're just looking at it like he has to just get in. We just have to get to a playing spot. Making a top 6 push for the playoffs is a bit tough, but at least if we're starting to beat these teams along the way and we start pulling off some wins, I think the play-in is 100% the expectation as it stands now.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I feel like playing for them is the expectation to make. I feel like in a one-off game with everybody healthy on their team, they can compete with anybody. So for me, it's them just getting together, just getting back into that basketball groove with Ja Morant coming back. I know there's still some injuries on the team. There are still missing players, but Ja's a big, big key piece. And if they can get to that playing tournament, they can compete with any one of those teams inside that tournament for sure.
The thing is, I feel like the Memphis Grizzlies aren't necessarily going to let Ja Morant kind of just go. I don't think he's coming out first game tomorrow with about 32, 34 minutes on his plate. So a minutes restriction doesn't necessarily concern you guys.
I mean, yeah, I know. I think they're definitely just gonna put him on a minutes restriction to just kind of get him going. But I feel like, those first, there's gonna. I don't think Ja Morant's gonna be completely out. rusty like I feel like he has been working on his game silently. He's been performing. Of course, that doesn't compare to NBA level performances, but I feel like initially the first 3-4 games is just him getting his feet wet, and then from there on out, they're just gonna make a complete push, for the play. And I think that's the expectation. I don't think there's gonna be an extended minutes restriction like he's off injury. He's fully healthy. He's been working on his game. I think he's just ready to go.
Well, I think that they're going to put a minute restriction on him. Obviously, probably for the first 2 weeks, you see how he comes back, and uh, we see how his conditioning is for the first couple of weeks, and after a week and a half, 2 weeks, after like 5 or 6 games, they're gonna let him loose. Obviously he's still working out outside of the suspension. He's probably still hooping every day. He's probably still trying to keep in condition, but NBA pace is a little different. It's gonna take him, some time to get under his legs, but a week and a half, 2 weeks.
That's fair. It's going to be interesting to see how this Memphis Grizzlies team moves forward now that they have their captain back. Sitting at a record of 6-19. It's not a place where you want to be, but at the end of the day, with the race being so close for the play-in tournament, there is an opportunity for these guys to turn their season around because it's not necessarily too late whatsoever. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see on that. Next, we'll go ahead and talk about the Los Angeles Clippers. And the last time we talked about this team, James Harden got traded to this team, and they were on some sort of 3-4 game losing skid. And as of late, they've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. I believe they might be on an 8-game win streak. Abdi maybe would correct me on that. They were able to pick up a win tonight in Indiana. James Harden did go absolutely berserk. And so, what is the ceiling for this Clippers team now that they look completely different in comparison to when we last talked about them?
It's funny because you're running victory laps over these Ja Morant comments that me and Big H had. Now it's time for me to run victory laps because if we go back, we rewind this. I was hearing Fred VanVleet is better than James Harden. Cam Johnson, Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, is better than James Harden. They're better values for their contract.
You know how disrespectful that was, bro?
That's just crazy to me.
He mentioned Fred VanVleet like.
That is what I promise you. If you're asking Houston fan right now, would I trade Fred? And I saw it as Fred VanVleet is bid for them. If you ask them right now, would I swap James Harden for Fred VanVleet? They'd do it in a heartbeat. Cam Johnson's just been mid as hell. He's not been performing up to his contract. We don't even need to talk about Jordan Poole in Washington. Tyler Hero's been injured, but he was hooping to start the season. But even then, he's not better than James Harden. And Kyle Kuzma's in a losing situation in Washington. Come on, he's a role player. It's just crazy to me, but besides all the victory lapping about those guys being better than James Harden or whatever, just to talk about this Clippers team, I mean, it was going to take time for them to gel. I mean, you come in, James Harden is a point guard. He's a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands. The first 6 games where they were losing, it's an adjustment. James Harden looks awkward in this offense. Everything looks weird. You have Westbrook in the starting lineup. You have PG, Kawhi, and Harden, Zubac. Who's getting the rock? Who's starting off these possessions? And so they didn't know what they were doing. James Harden would just give up the ball to Kawhi. He would run corner and he would sit there. And then Kawhi would initiate the offense and just be some awkward looking offense. PG would just chuck up some shots, and then Westbrook is Westbrook. It just was weird. Then, Ty Lue makes a tough decision, or Westbrook apparently came out, decided to accept the bench role. And then James Harden started to be the initiator of the offense. He just started getting the ball more. He's the one that's running their offense. Him and Zubac started to develop a 2-man game. And really the heart of all this is Kawhi Leonard just isn't washed. The guy got his feet back under him. It was last year around this time, he was looking even worse than he did now. And so he has his feet complete. He's been one of the hotter players in the entire NBA. That guy's just been on fire, just torching teams. And that's been at the heart of this. When Kawhi Leonard's on top of his game, a lot of things flow. And then James Harden, he's running the offense. You have PG there as a shooting guard. And when you have PG there as your small forward and he's your shooter, you add on top of the Norman Powell effect. He comes in and he's a scorer. And then Westbrook, the minutes that he gets, it's not as much as it used to be. He's getting about 20, 18 minutes a night, and he's being productive in those minutes. That's exactly what they needed from Westbrook, to come in, give them energy, push the pace, grab boards, play defense. And so really the expectation for this Clippers team is to win the NBA championship. That's the expectation for this team. That's the whole reason why they traded James Harden. That was the idea behind all this, added in the fact that, you have to knock on wood with these guys for health, especially for PG and Kawhi. But reality is that these guys want to win the championship. That's the idea behind it. And, right now it's still early. It's still December, but these guys are red hot, man. And this offense is clicking. It's looking good.
At one point in time, I was seeing a lineup with Westbrook, Zubac, PJ Tucker, Harden, and Kawhi. It was very nasty. The spacing was nasty. At one corner you have Westbrook and PJ Tucker stacking each other. Zubac just standing in the middle, not knowing what to do. If he wanted to pick and roll, if he wanted to take a little floater, then Kawhi, not feeling himself early on in the season, not being adjusted to the offense, and Ty Lue made some changes. Asked Westbrook to come to the bench, stop playing PJ Tucker. The spacing's much better on the court, and Harden's just more locked in. I feel like now, like Abdi said, it's championship or bust, especially the way they've been playing. I think it's 9-game win streak after today's W?
8-game.
8-game win streak. So they've been playing phenomenal. They found their groove. Harden, PG, and especially Kawhi. Kawhi, we're seeing him go back to, that Toronto Kawhi. He hasn't missed a game this season. So Kawhi not missing a single game this season. I feel like he's on the path to be healthy. Guide this team to a deep playoff push, and that's what they need. Now you got PG and Harden especially just playing that point guard role that he's supposed to be playing. He does, you really don't need him to score that much. He gives you that 18-9, play some, some solid defense on the other end. It's a great contribution. So I feel like, ride your coattail with Kawhi, and then you got your two other stars, PG and Harden. And I feel like everybody else on the team is playing well too. Now they're fitting in. Now they're slowing down the pace. They're finding their shots. Powell's coming off the bench. Westbrook's playing a clean 17 minutes. I feel like Zubac has found his groove at center with his team as well. So it's good to see them win. Fuck the Clippers though. It's always Laker Nation, but their expectations, they got to make it to the finals finally with this team.
Hey man, at the end of the day, I can admit where we're at when I take a loss, man. That was it's an L on my behalf, but to get back to this Harden fit, to get back to this Clippers team, it really just took an adjusting period. At first, I know we talked about it a little bit. Russell Westbrook being in the lineup alongside guys like Harden and Kawhi and PG and Zubac just wasn't necessarily going to work, and it was going to really take somebody like Russell Westbrook, who really should get a lot of the credit for this Clipper success as of late, to really make an executive decision, a very harsh personal decision to move himself to the bench and to understand what's best for the team. And Russell Westbrook coming out and saying that he wants to be moved to the bench to allow this team to have a different look with Harden leading the way. It took a lot out of him to do that, because Russell Westbrook was starting on this team, and the Clippers weren't necessarily bad when he was their starter, but they weren't looking like this. They weren't looking like how they are right now. They're definitely a completely different team. So a lot has changed since the last time we talked about this Clippers team. And Kawhi Leonard never really was washed in my eyes, but obviously sometimes some games he doesn't necessarily look like himself. And as of late, he's looked like looked like the Kawhi of old. Really just been playing great basketball all around. And for the Los Angeles Clippers, the expectation has always remained the same for them for the last 3 or 4 years since they've acquired those two guys, Kawhi and PG. It's always been championship or bust with these guys. Unfortunately, those two guys just haven't been healthy enough to stay on the court for this team. You see, either one is out of the lineup or both are out of the lineup. And then at the end of the day, they're going into the postseason with their backs against the wall, their arms tied behind their back, playing against some of these top teams in the West. And so, at the end of the day, health is a key factor in this Clippers championship run. I think if they're a healthy team, when you look at the Western Conference, they can compete with pretty much anybody. And then when you compare them to across the board with the Eastern Conference as well, they can compete across the board with teams like Milwaukee and Philadelphia and Boston. So it's always been championship or bust for the Clippers, because at the end of the day, you don't make a move for a guy like James Harden and say, well, we're looking to just kind of build off what we got right now and maybe move into next year, and then maybe next year we go all in. You guys went all in to go grab a guy like James Harden to add to what you already have, and now your offense has a completely different look than what it was before. You never necessarily had a true floor general like James Harden to run the show alongside guys like Kawhi and PG. Kawhi and PG, those guys, their lives have been changed forever with this guy running the show. The shots are coming a lot easier. Zubac is getting his numbers because the pick and roll with him and Harden is working and is fluid. And so, for this Clippers team, every Clippers fan should be saying shout out to Russell Westbrook for being the bigger man and taking that back seat, allowing all those guys to do what they do. Now the success is finally starting to roll in. And now that they sit at the 60 with a 16-10 record, everything's just so close in the Western Conference as of right now. Nobody's really pulling away from anybody. I know the Minnesota Timberwolves sit at
20-5. Have just been crazy, bro. Like those guys, I don't know when they're gonna lose, because that defense is just ridiculous, bro. that team is just not going away.
I mean, we can, aside from the Los Angeles Clippers, I mean, we can get into the Minnesota Timberwolves. They sit right now with a record of 20-5, first in the Western Conference. They've been one of the best teams in all of basketball. I mean, we kind of clowned that Rudy Gobert trade last year. We're making
I
fun
mean, I
of it.
tried it last year though. I tried it. Like I was honest. I even had Chris Finch winning Coach of the Year. I think I had them finishing 5th. And then like I turned back my expectations coming into this season. But I mean, the team, the structure defensively is just ridiculous. I mean, you have Jaden McDaniels, you have Anthony Edwards you have capable perimeter defenders behind in front of Rudy Gobert, and then Rudy Gobert's been playing at a defensive player of the year caliber. I mean, it's just been absurd on that end. I think like just for teams to try to score, like this team really is the answer to the Denver Nuggets. I do still have question marks about their half court offense. You know, it looks a lot clunky when it's Cat and Ant together. But even then, defensively, I mean, they've just been lights out on that end. And then you have contributors like Mike Conley and Nikhil Alexander Walker, and then you have the Warriors killer Naz Reid. This guy always comes in and just gets a bucket. I mean, the guy just knows how to score the basketball. They have a lot of guys that come and contribute, when they can. And so, I mean, this team, they have the bare bones to be able to make a run in this Western Conference. But at the same time, I still do have question marks about their offense. But even then, they have the minerals, man. This team is good.
I just believe their defense is just so elite, and I think their defense is really what's carrying them at this point. I wasn't one of the few people that clowned the Rudy Gobert trade. I just wasn't necessarily a fan of the whole that it took to go ahead and get a guy like Rudy Gobert. I mean, I think Rudy Gobert is an elite defensive center, of course, as we all know. But 6-7 first round picks for a guy like Rudy Gobert just really messes up the market for every other superstar that's trying to come out and make a trade and move on to a different franchise. But this Minnesota Timberwolves team, they got the minerals, they got what it takes to compete. And I kind of do agree with you on that. I do think, I'm not saying they're a better team than Denver Nuggets. I think when you just look at it, they have the guys, they have the bodies to match up with a guy like Jokic. I mean, you throw Rudy Gobert on him, you don't necessarily have to, use Cat in any type of situation. You have Naz Reid as well. So they kind of have the depth pretty much everywhere across the board. And I'm blown away from their 20-5 start. I personally cannot believe it. I couldn't even believe it when I saw the standings right now that they're still number one in the West. Normally, teams start off red hot first couple of weeks of the season. They probably steal the number one seed from somebody, and they kind of just fall off as the season goes on. But like I talked about in the beginning of our episode, we're getting to late December, early January really soon, and these guys are still continuing to play great basketball. And at the end of the day, man, it's Anthony Edwards. It's about that leap that I was talking about before the season started. I know he's still averaging only 24 points a game, but this is his team. And I think the numbers might not show it, but he's a guy that's capable to go ahead and get you, those 30, 35 points a night if you need it. Whenever you need a big game, you need a big play. I mean, tonight he came down the stretch. He was cooking your Miami Heat. Bucket after bucket, and
big game winning shot, basically sealed the deal.
That's just the type of player that he is. And at the end of the day, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, we might be having a different conversation about this Minnesota Timberwolves team. But so far, it's been nothing but highlights. It's been nothing but great news coming out of Minnesota. But aside from all that, man, the issue that we have to talk about tonight as well is the Draymond Green situation that's been going on. As we all know, Draymond Green has been suspended indefinitely. The Warriors are, I think, as of right now, they sit outside of the play-in tournament, and this guy Draymond Green just can't seem to get himself out of trouble. A couple of weeks ago, he got ejected for choking out Rudy Gobert. He got suspended, I believe, what was it, like 10 games or something like that.
Might have been like 5 or something like that.
5 games? I think it was 5 games. Yeah. He gets suspended for 5 games, comes back, plays a couple of games. Next thing you know, it's a haymaker to Yusuf Nurkic on Thursday playing the Phoenix Suns. And now the NBA has kind of just been done with Draymond Green, and they've washed their hands with him and slapped an indefinite suspension on him. And now he's unable to hop on the court and play with this Warriors team until he checks off the checklist, kind of similar to what they did to a guy like Kyrie Irving. And, pretty much saying that, hey, man, you're not right mentally, and you're not going to be able to come back to the court until you get everything right and everything situated. And so now it's just kind of confusing for this Golden State Warriors team. I personally just don't know where they go from here. So that's my question. Where do the Warriors go from here?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of tough because, this is really the natural cycle of a dynasty. You win a lot. You give him a contract. You guys grow older, and then things just kind of die down like that. Steph Curry's still playing at a top 5 player level. He's still one of the best talents we've ever seen. And it's just like, well, you can't really wash your hands. The Warriors can't wash their hands with Draymond Green because, for one thing, he's still one of the best defenders in the entire NBA, regardless of what happens to him. This guy just holds together that Warriors defense. He's just a phenomenal defensive quarterback. Basically, the guy puts everything together on that end. So it's hard to wash your hands with him because you don't have a replacement for Draymond Green, however bad he may be offensively. And it's like it's getting to the point where Draymond Green, you can put up with his antics so much because what the value that he brings, but there's going to be a crossroad where does his value match up with what he consistently does and harms us, on the court or off the court, whatever he does. And so that's kind of like the dilemma that the Warriors are in. I do think that they're end up just gonna be forced to put up with it because he's part of their dynasty. It's tough to cut ties with a guy who you've won multiple championships with, who's anchored your defense multiple times, was big part of that 2022 run, especially in the regular season defensively. I think he should have been a candidate for defensive player of the year until he got injured. I just think that you're kind of stuck with the Draymond Green situation. You can't wash your hands because it's not like he has a crazy value. In another situation, he's holding your defense together. But it's like, man, like you gotta lock in. It's kind of embarrassing at this point. You have guys that legitimately think that you need help. Like they think that there's something wrong with you mentally, and there obviously isn't something wrong with Draymond Green mentally. It's just a bunch of encore antics. You have guys like Katie saying, I hope he gets the help that he needs. You have Yusuf Nurkic saying, I hope that brother gets help. You have a lot of guys that are just basically saying like, yo, like something's wrong with this guy. So I think Draymond Green needs to look at himself and just understand that he's, you're at the back end of your career. You're part of a big three that won multiple championships together. You need to seriously lock in. You need to stop, all these antics. You need to focus straight on basketball. Do what you do defensively. Bring the value that you bring, and just to stick to that because you can't just keep hurting this team in this type of situation because they're willing to they're putting up with you in good faith, but you're not returning the favor. So I think that's just what the Warriors have to do.
This brother Draymond, man, I don't know how many times are we gonna ask Draymond, hey, we need you to lock in, we need you to stop doing stupid shit, we need you to stop punching people, we need you to stop messing with teammates, we need you to stop running people out, we need you to stop getting suspended. This shit been going on since 2016. It hasn't really stopped at all. For me, it's how many chances you're going to give this guy regardless of what he brought to the city. I feel like he's soiling the locker room. He's soiling what's happening on the court. He's messing up the team mojo, leading up to that Jordan Poole situation. That I feel like, threw a lot of people off in that locker room. And like I said, these past couple of years, these Warriors have been dwindling down. I feel like, their dynasty is going to be coming to an end. Klay Thompson's not looking like what Klay is. And I feel like for them, it's either you tell Draymond like, yo, this is your last opportunity. We're gonna chop you. It's time for you to go. They want to show something to these young rookies that they have on this team that he's not the leader. He's not the guy that can do that. For me, he's always out. He's always suspended. He's always hitting somebody. He's always punching somebody. I don't know how you tell a guy that about 15 or 20 times. Hey, we need you on the court. He still doesn't listen. Me, I just feel like Draymond's Draymond, but when people say, hey, this guy's depressed or he's like, Gobert coming out saying that, he needs to seek therapy, he needs to seek help. And you can't say that about a guy that's probably enjoying his life outside of basketball. You don't know the person probably outside of basketball. You don't know if he's happy. You don't know if he's enjoying his life with his family. Maybe, he's extremely happy. And then for people to come out and say, hey, he needs to seek therapy, he needs to step away from what he's doing, and he looks depressed, he's this and that. You're not a doctor. You can't judge that. Just keep it pushing. If it's basketball related, talk about basketball. Another case for me, man. These guys, you let Draymond come walk all over you on the court. You don't retaliate. You don't push back. You don't do nothing. To me, it's kind of soft. A lot of these other guys back in the day, Artest, all these type of guys, they will not. Ben Wallace, they will not let Draymond walk the court like that. Coming in there.
It's because niggas are just trying to hoop, bro. Like, you're not just gonna bro, we're tired of the bullshit. Like, why you there's niggas like that, like Isaiah Stewart, like he don't care about basketball. He really trying to fight, but there's dudes trying to hoop, bruh. Like, I'm just trying to hoop.
Face though,
Like,
At
bro, I'm
least,
coming to play basketball. I'm
if you
trying to
going up
win.
for a layup, like set the tone, hip check him,
Bro, like,
hit him
you
in
know,
the
if
air.
you engage back, bro, now, guess what? Both of you are ejected. And that nigga Draymond
And-
clearly
and-
doesn't care about basketball. He
I
don't
agree with
care.
that. Draymond really don't care, but at the same time, is hey, you gotta
Like,
show
Isaiah
that.
Stewart, he got nothing to lose. He's about it. He gonna fight.
Like Stewart, hey, Isaiah Stewart need to see Draymond.
They got into it before because Stewart's about that. He's really trying to fight people.
That's what I'm saying.
Other guys like Mitchell.
Draymond's not about that, bro. I'm telling you, like
he's not
he's
gonna
like-
test. He's not
he's
gonna test
gonna hit-
actual
he's
dudes
gonna
that
pound his
like really
chest.
want to
Yeah,
fight.
He's gonna pound his chest. Like I said, somebody, if you're going for layup, body check him. Set the tone. Tell him like, yo, if you want to play dirty, we can play dirty too.
Like Ant, like the whole thing with him and Ant, where they were arguing back and forth. Ant just said bet and just fried his ass for the next 10 points, and they won that game. Like there's some dudes that are trying to hoop, and there's some dudes that are like literally trying to fight. Like there's some guys in the league, like you could try that shit with James Johnson or some shit, bro.
That's not gonna fly with James Johnson, man.
That shit ain't gonna fly in. But, yeah,
I know what you mean though. Some guys like it gets annoying after a while. The same dude doing the same shit. Like some guys just gotta be like, yo, like dead ass, like we can fight right now, type shit.
Right here, right
if
now.
You
like,
really,
if you want to play dirty, like we can play dirty too. Don't go for a layup and come middle. I'm gonna hit you. Draymond he got comfortable on the court. That's why he be doing all this. Like, nobody has really G-checked him.
I mean, you guys think there's some truth to what Udonis Haslem was saying, where he just said where he's picking on dudes that just don't want to fight back?
100%.
You think Sabonis wants to fight back? That brother does not want to fight.
He's trying to hoop.
You think Nurkic wants to fight back? That brother wants to go back home, drink his tea, and relax. Like, come on.
But there's a reason why he keeps targeting these foreigners, bro. He's targeting these foreigners for a reason. Haslam's spitting facts. Like, he's not really trying this with actual dudes that want to fight. Because when Tristan Thompson was slapping dude in the club, he wasn't doing anything, bro. Like, come on, man. Like,
wait, why do you know that, bro?
Come on, everybody knows that. Dude smacked him in the club. What was going on then? Like, it's just facts. Like, it's cool to be a tough guy to these guards.
Draymond got smacked in the club.
Yeah, in the club by Tristan Thompson. Like, it's cool. It's cool when you can go ahead and fight these foreigners that are just trying to play basketball. They're just trying to do their job and just get out of there. But when actual dudes that are trying to fight, then it's a whole different story because now it's silent. Because I never see him try this with the Kawhis or the LeBrons or any of those other guys because he'd never try that shit with them. Like he never in his life would try that. But with these other random foreigners, he's gonna try it. Like that's some sorry shit, man.
Hey, man, I agree with you on that stance. I just think the way I look at this whole situation is availability is the best ability, and for this Golden State Warriors team, especially with the way that in the form that they're in right now, they need a guy like Draymond on the court at all times. And his teammates are coming out and saying that, they need him to be out there. His head coach is coming out and saying, we need him to be out there. But this guy just continues to pick on people and get himself ejected. I believe he has 3 ejections on the year and just doesn't look like he wants to be out there on the floor to help his guys out. And, when you look at the Warriors team, this team as a whole, they have a whole bunch of problems. And it's funny because the guy we thought would cause the most problems, which is Chris Paul, is a guy who's not causing the most problems at all. I know Chris Paul may have his issues. He might be that coney, defensively, but the Warriors have far bigger problems than that. Klay Thompson isn't playing well. These last 3 games, he's stepped up a little bit since he's admitted that he's been playing like crap. But for majority of this season, leading up to these last 3 games, he's been trash. Andrew Wiggins, I'm not too sure what has happened to him since that 2021 or 2022 NBA Finals. Hasn't been the same player. Now he's on the bench because Steve Kerr had to make a move, to wake him up. And I believe he did have a good game the other night against I think it was either the Brooklyn Nets or the Portland Trailblazers. But at the end of the day, these guys don't necessarily have anybody. And that's why I feel like the Warriors right now, they're just kind of stuck where they are because, like I said in the beginning of the season, you have a guy like Steph Curry on your roster. You cannot look to tank. You cannot tell yourselves, hey, man, even though we know we're not going to be able to win a championship with what we got, let's go ahead and just try to lose as many games as we can. We'll just go ahead and compete each and every night. If we win, we win. But if we lose, it's all good and we just go ahead and try to get a top draft pick. That just can't happen for this Warriors team. And it's because of Steph Curry. And so when I look at the Warriors for the next 3-4 years, because Steph Curry is still going to be around, he's playing at a top 5 level. I honestly just do not know where they go from here. And my personal advice would be to just wash the house. I understand you have loyalty to a lot of these guys that brought you championships. guys like Draymond Green, guys like Klay Thompson, guys like Kevon Looney. But at the end of the day, man, at some point, you just got to tell yourselves that the run was nice. Everything was good. They were able to squeeze out one more championship together, and they bought him a few more years together. They bought the band back together. But with Klay Thompson going into the free agency market this upcoming season, I don't look to bring him back because I know the rumors coming into this season, he got offered a contract 2 years, $48 million. Klay Thompson does not look like a player that deserves $24 million a year. Like he does not look like that type of player whatsoever. He does not deserve that type of contract. He's playing maybe at like a $15 million level as of right now. Andrew Wiggins, I'm not too sure what you can get for him on the market right now, but I'm sure if you package him with a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, who you waited for, you waited on him to excel and grow and progress as a player, just hasn't reached that level yet. You don't necessarily have that type of time to wait and see how he develops as a player. You probably package him with Wiggins. You maybe have to throw in Moses Moody, a guy who I like a lot on this Warriors team, but just can't necessarily crack the rotation and get key rotational minutes for this Warriors team, and try to see what you can get. Because at this point, man, you got to be able to surround Steph with guys that are going to be able to, get you another championship. Because Steph's going to be able to lead the way. He there's no doubt about that. But he's got to have the players around him to do so. If guys like Draymond Green and Kevon Looney are in your lineup combining for about 0 points a game, how are you supposed to win basketball games? That game against the Phoenix Suns on Thursday night, Kevon Looney and Draymond Green both had 0 points at halftime, and they were losing, I believe. Like, that's not winning basketball. You can't win. That's not the recipe to winning. And with how stacked the Western Conference is, and even though the race is close between all of these teams are significantly better than these guys. And Steph Curry can only do so much. At the end of the day, if Steph Curry has an off night, goodbye to your chances of winning that night. Because, I mean, they're luckily able to escape last night against the Portland Trailblazers where he didn't hit a single three. But the Trailblazers are a tanking team, and you don't necessarily play him all 82 games of the season. You maybe play him 3-4 times, depending on how the schedule works out. And so, for this Warriors team, I know they have Mike Dunleavy now, and so it might be a different approach. Normally at the trade deadline, these guys aren't active whatsoever. I'm not too sure who they can get, to help rebuild this roster and to help, push these guys over the top and kind of put them back in that contenders bracket. Because right now on the outside looking in, sitting with a record of 12-14, Warriors basketball, it just hasn't been enjoyable whatsoever this season. At the beginning of the year, it was nice to watch. Maybe I would say the first 8-9 games, when guys were not playing this bad. But ever since those 8-9 games, teams started to figure out, these guys, and Steph Curry's been playing great, but Klay Thompson's play, went downhill. Draymond Green's availability is one night he's there for you, the next night you just can't count on him. And then Andrew Wiggins, of course, like I talked about, has been one of the worst players on this Warriors team. And so the only few bright spots on this team is that guy out of Santa Clara, Brad Przinski or something like that. He's been really solid for them. So that's the guy you probably want to keep around a little bit. You want to give him a little bit more time on this team. But outside of that, a lot of these guys just got to get washed, man. A lot of these guys got to get sent to different locations, get a new scene, new scenery and new home. And that's how you move forward as a franchise, because, I understand the whole dynasty run, their whole dynasty run has ended. These guys could be together for the next 5 to 7 years, but nobody's expecting them to get back to that championship level. Their last shot was last year, but that all went to shit because Draymond Green decided to punch Jordan Poole in the offseason and in training camp, and the chemistry was just off ever since then. And so, for this Warriors team, it's going to take a lot of work for these guys to get back to the contenders bracket. Not even just a championship bracket, just for them to be considered as playoff contenders in the Western Conference. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But with the way the season has gone so far for this Warriors team, it's a major concern, man. It's a major red flag, and Mike Dunleavy has to be the guy that makes the harsh calls and the harsh decisions moving forward. But aside from the Golden State Warriors, let's go ahead and talk about some early NBA All-Star candidates. A lot of guys have been playing great basketball this year, and they have not been flying under the radar. But, as always, the All-Star selection is very tough. And as we all know, it's going to be tough for players to crack that, that starting lineup, because a lot of the voters, a lot of the voting from the public are going to ride for their franchise guys. And so, who are some guys that should be getting some All-Star recognitions so far this season?
Are we thinking, let's just start with our starting lineup?
We can start off with starters and we can go to the bench. We start off with the East.
I think for a point guard, East, I think I'll go with Halliburton. I think, yeah, I'll go with Tyrese Halliburton. I don't think there's been a better point guard on the season from the East over Halliburton, so I'm comfortably going with him.
I agree with Abby. I think Halliburton been the best point guard in the East.
I agree. We go Halliburton at the 1.
At the 2 for the East, I'm still, I don't know. I think I'll personally still go with Donovan Mitchell. I think he's been having a more underrated season than people are talking about. I think defensively he's been really good. The Cavs just lost Darius Garland and Mobley to some extended absences, so we're going to see some big performances from Donovan Mitchell. But overall in the season, he's still averaging about 27 on good shooting. I think he's gone under the radar for his performances, but the guy's been really, really good on the season. So I think as a 2 guard, I think I'll go with him. I'll go with Donovan Mitchell.
Can I put Jalen Brunson as a 2 guard here?
I mean, he counts as a guard.
He counts as a guard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got Brunson up in here, man. I feel like Brunson's been playing very, very solid for the Knicks. Very solid. I feel like he's been their best player from the jump, especially in the big ones that they had. I just think he's been very consistent, averaging 26 and 7 for them. So I got Brunson.
26 and 7. What's Mitchell averaging on the year? About what, 27?
27 and 5 or 27 and 6, something like that.
Okay. And they both have 2 similar records. Knicks sit at number 5 with a 14 and 11 record. Cavs sit at number 6 with 15 and 12. There's really no wrong answer when you look at it. I think you can go. You have an argument for both ways. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and put both of them down. Just one of them, because one of them is just going to have to hold that reserve spot.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson. So now we move to the forwards.
Well, my small forward is going to be, no question, Jason Tatum. I mean, they've been the best team in the East.
I think we can agree for the next 3 players here. I feel like it's
Tatum, Giannis, and Embiid, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's those 3. I feel like they're locked in.
Yeah, Tatum, Giannis, and Embiid. I think that's a pretty solid starting lineup.
Normally, figuring out the starters isn't necessarily the hard part. The hard part is figuring out the reserves. Because a lot of guys are going to get snubbed.
Do we want to go reserves East or starters West?
Let's go ahead and let's go starters West.
So my point guard it's obviously my pick's going to be Shea. I think or Luka, whoever wants to be the 1 or 2, but it's going to be. I'll go with Luka at the 1. I think he's been a damn near top 3 MVP candidate, especially these last 15 games. He's just been on an absolute tear. He's going to miss Kyrie for some time, and even then, he's been putting up huge performances. So I think I'll go with Luka as my 1.
100% agree. I mean, for me, Luka 1, and then Shea's probably gonna be my 2. But Luka comes in and hoops every single season. I feel like he don't miss a beat. His game is, ethical hoops. He plays, he comes, he hoops, cooks up 40, 13, 8. One day 6 threes, the next day is crazy layups. The next day it's a game winner. And especially these last couple stretches without Kyrie, these last couple games, he's just been hooping. So Luka for me is at the 1.
Deservingly, Luka and Shea should be the starters as of right now. You guys aren't necessarily too concerned that the voters are probably just going to vote Steph Curry in just based on.
I mean, they probably will. And it's not to say that Steph Curry hasn't been great. I think Steph Curry's been amazing, but for the most part, I think Shea on the season, with how great the Thunder's been playing and his own individual 2-way performances, I think I give the edge to Shea. But the voters are probably going to go with Steph. Not saying Steph doesn't have a great case for it, but I would give the edge to Shea.
It's a good thing we're not voters, so we don't necessarily have to do what they do. Luka and Shea for our backcourt. Do the Minnesota Timberwolves get a starter?
Nah. Because they don't have anybody that I could comfortably say has been like a top 7 player on the season. Or even because what? And even then, who's been, quote-unquote, Minnesota's most important player? Some people are going to argue Ant. Some people are going to argue Gobert. So it's which one of the 2 would make that case for a starter? And even then, which one of the 2 has been playing at that level?
Yeah, I just need that consistency from Ant. I feel like, there'd be some games where he performs and then there'd be that little drought where he's shooting 3 for 15 or 4 for 19 or 3 for 20. Like against Dallas, he was like 3 for 19 the other day. It was pretty nasty. So for me, the consistency, I feel like there's other guards that are better than Ant right now in the West. I feel like there's at least 3 or 4 guards that I would take over him right now, but I wouldn't put him to the starting lineup.
That's fair. And at the 3 position, I think we're all thinking the same thing. I think we're all thinking Kawhi Leonard.
This is where I've been a little bit. I don't mind going Kawhi Leonard, but like at the same time, like Braun has a pretty damn good case at 3. Because then who's your 4? Is it KD?
Is it Anthony Davis? We know number 5. We know that 5th spot's locked up. We could just put that man down, Nikola Jokic.
We know number 5 is Jokic.
Yeah,
that's Jokic.
I think LeBron.
I was thinking like a combination of Braun and KD, because Kawhi has a great case himself.
Kawhi has a great case, but I feel like the consistency overall throughout the full year, LeBron and KD been on that.
Especially KD, I think for the most part, KD's like he's been playing at like an MVP level for basically the entirety of the season compared to Kawhi Leonard, who started to get his feet under him the last like 10, 12 games. So I would go with Braun and KD. I'm not gonna lie.
Damn, that's a real tough one, man. KD's back to averaging a 30-piece, 6 and 5. Just the Suns haven't been winning too much in the.
Yeah, they haven't. I don't know, man. I would go with
year.
Yeah.
4 years so far. You know, Kawhi now he's turned up in these last 14 games. That full year for me, LeBron and KD, they've been hooping.
Yeah, that's a tough choice because, yeah, I would, because like LeBron, like plus you add in like the in-season tournament performance, like not counting the final game, but the 2 games before that, and those count as regular season games. I think that kind of gives them the edge, especially the performance against the game before against the Pelicans, how we played defensively. I think I'd give it to Braun.
We'll go ahead and put down KD, and we'll put LeBron, and then of course, as we mentioned earlier, got Jokic rounding out our top 5. I don't think there's ever a concern over there. So now I move to the reserves, which is really the hard part.
I feel like East is very hard, but the West is gonna be easy.
What's the format? What is it? 12 players make a team?
I was 13.
I believe it's just I think it's just 12 straight. It's not necessarily like some specific head count for each position.
So we got 7 bench?
Yes, I think 7 bench player.
Do the Celtics get 2 All-Stars this year?
I know they get 1. They'll for sure get 1. I don't know if Porzingis 100% will make it. I can 100% see Jaylen Brown making it.
Him and Tatum.
I can 100%. So how it works is so you get 2 guards, 3 front court players, and 2 wild cards. So the wild cards can be anything. It can be a front court player.
Let's get through the guards first, and then move to.
So you get 2 guards, right?
Like I said, between Mitchell and Brunson, one of them holding the bench. So that's
that's one of them for sure. So we have 1 guard.
So let's just say this: Brunson.
There's another guy I want to throw in there.
Let's say Brunson's a starter, right?
And
we'll say Mitchell's a first reserve guard. Who's the second one?
I gotta give it to Trae Young.
I was gonna say Trae Young. I think Trae Young's been on a heater especially the last 10 games. I think he's, the efficiency starting to really, really turn up.
Yeah,
I think he's been playing.
I think Trae Young's reserve the spot.
Yeah. So like my second guard would be Trae Young.
Even with the losing record.
Yeah, I think he's still been playing great, even with the losing record.
Okay. So
now you have your 3 front court players. I'd say one of my front court players is Bam.
Bam deserves it. For sure.
I think on the season, Bam, especially how we missed the last 5 games. I think Bam's been playing great.
The Orlando Magic sit at number 5. Do they get any All-Stars this year?
Paolo might get a spot, man.
21, 21, 7 and 5 for Paolo.
I mean, are we counting Jaylen Brown as a front court player? He is kind of a shooting guard, small forward.
With the lineup they play right now, he's
what is he? He plays the 2 for him.
Nah,
Yeah.
he plays small forward. You got Derek White. You got
Oh, yeah,
Drew Holiday.
Derek Holiday. He would be a forward, man.
The thing is, for me, man, if you guys are picking, I'd say I'd take Paolo instead of Jaylen Brown. I feel like Paolo do more for his team than what Jaylen Brown does. Especially his second year, the way he's leading Orlando right now, 16-9, sitting in the 4th seed, averaging 21, 7 and 5.
Yeah. I mean, I would go with Jaylen Brown as my second reserve forward. Then you have one last option as your third one.
You guys have guys like Julius.
I would put
Randle.
Paolo as my third.
So we have for forwards, we have Jaylen Brown. We also have Paulo. Then what? We have one
Bam,
more spot
Jaylen
left?
Brown, Bam, Jaylen Brown, and yeah. So now you have.
Yeah, that's another guard. There's another guard I'm missing.
Now you have 2 wild card spots.
I
Those
think
2
Maxey,
wild cards.
Maxey deserves a
Yeah.
spot.
There's Maxey, 100%. So now you have 2 wild card spots. Your 2 wild card spots can either be a forward or a guard.
How we forgetting right now? Dame too.
Maxey's one of them.
What are you guys thinking about Dame?
I think Dame's been a bit up and down on the season. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not messing with the consistency, man.
What is
that's
he? I think he's still averaging what, like 26 or something like that.
26 and 7.
And the thing is, though, they've been what, top 3 seed?
And 19 and
Top-
7.
top
there.
They're the second seed, matter of fact.
2. Yeah, so I think
honestly, my spot here would have been LaMelo if he never got injured. For me, it would have been him.
He was on a heater for about 7-8 games.
Outside shot for me is Scotty Barnes. I'm not gonna lie. I think Scotty Barnes on the season has been. It's just the record just hasn't been there for Toronto, but on the season, I think Scotty Barnes has been playing amazing. I think he had a bounce back year compared to last year. I remember we were talking about this, where teams were treating him like Ben Simmons, basically. And so this year he's been
back with a jump shot.
Yeah, he came back with a jump shot. He's worked on his game a lot more. He's an outside shot for that spot. It's tough.
Are we putting Maxey in as one of our flyers?
Yeah, I think Maxey would be a wild card, and just wild card just means that it's not different from any other reserve. It just means it could be either front court or shooting or a guard.
All right, so we got one Maxey, and then we got the next one. Yeah, this one's tough, man.
We have one more.
One more after this.
So do we have our 2 wild card spots? So it's Maxey, then is it Dame?
I think it might be Dame, bro. Even though the play has been inconsistent, I
don't see.
What do we? I mean, I don't know. It would either be like our options would either be Dame. It would be either Dame or Jimmy Butler. Those are like the last 2 spots, really. Like that's really the last 2 spots.
Damn, man, those are 2 players that one's inconsistent and the other I haven't heard much of this season.
One don't care about the season like that. He go third of playoff time though for sure.
He don't even care about the All-Star position, anyways, bro. He's gonna show up and say I don't want to play.
Nah, give it to Dame. It'd be Dame and Maxey for my wild card. The only one that doesn't sit right on me is just having Jaylen Brown in that shit.
I mean, he's the number 1 seed, man. You gotta
have 2 players, man.
So we'll put Dame as the wild card, and then that pretty much rounds out our Eastern Conference reserves. Now we move to the West. The West is just going to be a lot of guys that just weren't able to cut it for that starting lineup. Well, we're putting at number 1. We'll probably start with Steph.
I think Booker.
Anthony Edwards.
No,
Booker.
So we have 2 guards right now. We have Steph and Booker.
We have Steph and Booker. Kawhi will be in that mix since he wasn't able to crack that starting lineup.
Kawhi would be the first front court player.
Kawhi. Another guy that I have to.
No, wait, where's Anthony Davis? Yeah.
Anthony Davis will make it.
Yeah.
And then
Anthony Davis will make it.
At this point right now, my center.
No, what's the third center? Is it Gobert or Sabonis?
No, I'm giving it to Gobert.
Yeah, I think
that point
I think you would kind of have to give it to Gobert.
Yeah,
I think it would be Gobert. Just because,
two.
I mean, the dominant record, the defensive performances, everything. Now you have 2 wild card spots. And now for these options, I mean, you can go with De'Aaron Fox as one of them. And I
That's
think he
one
definitely,
option.
I think he's
I think
the
he
first option
definitely
to.
There's no doubt he's gonna make that
he's
spot.
a lock for sure. And then
And now,
And
now
then wouldn't it just have to be Devin Booker that makes that wild card spot?
yeah,
I
Devin
thought
Booker
I thought Booker was our starting shooting guard.
No, Booker's our backup.
No, backup shooting guard.
The thing is, though, like the wild card spots is pretty much the same as a reserve spot. It's just how it's labeled is it could be anything, a guard or a front court player.
So if we have
So-
Steph, Book, AD, Kawhi, Gobert,
Ants.
Yeah, we have Ant. I mentioned that Steph, Ant.
Booker,
So we get
Booker,
we get 2 guards and 3 front court players and 2 wild cards. So our 2 wild cards could be just Fox and Ant.
So the Pelicans are getting no All Stars this year.
I mean, they
That's-
might not. Ingram might get a shout for a spot, but he might have to try to get for a wild card spot. But I don't know, man.
Damn.
But also at the same time, like whoever's picked as a coach can't pick their own players. It's crazy.
as the bench.
Wait. What do you mean by that?
As a reserve, I believe a coach cannot like pick their own players for the reserves or something. There's like a rule against a coach picking like more than a player for the reserves. So I don't know if Chris Finch is going to be the head coach for the we might not see Minnesota be able to last that long, but I believe there's a rule against a coach in the All-Star reserves. Let me go ahead and see that. You see, NBA coaches vote for the reserves for the respective conferences. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so you know how? Never mind. I got it wrong. So they're good. They can get 2 players in the front in that game. So I think
probably Fox and Ant.
I think Fox and Ant will probably
That
Fox
that
and
makes
Fox
the most
Booker.
makes the most sense.
Damn. So Pelicans are not gonna have anything.
So Sabonis not gonna make it.
I mean, there's a bunch. There's a couple like snubs there. I mean, Sabonis has an argument. Chet to me has an argument. Wemby might have an argument. I'm not gonna lie. Like just if you look at performance wise, Wemby's been ever since they started putting Wemby at the 5, bruh. That guy's crazy, man.
It's 4 wins, man. They're still a record of 4 and 21.
Bro. He's trying, bro.
He's trying.
If it wasn't for Wemby, bro, these guys would be talked about just like we talk about the Detroit Pistons, man. So we're just luckily he's getting away, just being the number 1 overall pick and being the player that he is. But I don't know. It's gonna be tough for
Ant. Yeah,
it'll be
but
Fox.
definitely,
Fox.
I think Chet has an outside shot at All-Star spot.
You know, sitting at number 2, that is a strong case. I just peeped 17-8. But I think we can round it out with that, though. I think we can round it out with Booker. We can round it out Fox as the 2 wild cards. Because, like I said in the beginning, a lot of these guys are gonna that weren't able to just make it in the starting lineup will be able
It's
to
a lot of
hold
guys
reserve
that would be
spot.
starters.
Yeah.
I mean, the Clippers are only gonna get one All-Star though.
Paul George, yeah. So if it was early season, Paul George, yeah.
So,
But as of recently, he's just been kind of quiet.
Yep.
What do you think about snubs for the East?
I don't
feel
feel
like
like there's snubs in the East like that.
Do you feel like there's anybody in the East?
I'm not. I mean, because Boston might potentially get 2, Milwaukee potentially 2, Philadelphia 2, Orlando just really deserves 1. Knicks deserve what? They got 2, 1 being Brunson, the other Randall. Cavs only 1. Miami might not get an All-Star. That's not. I wouldn't necessarily call it a snub though.
Yeah,
because
it wouldn't be the craziest thing.
It wouldn't. Nothing really stood out to me there. Indiana, it only makes sense to have Halliburton. Brooklyn deserves absolutely no All-Stars. I don't care how good Mikal Bridges has been this year. Raptors, maybe with Scotty Barnes as of late, but other than that, teams like Chicago, Hornets, Wizards, Pistons, they're not getting All-Stars, and for Atlanta being on the outside looking in, they'll be lucky to get Trae Young in that All-Star game. In the West, it's pretty much been the same thing. Houston doesn't necessarily have any All-Star caliber players.
I mean, the only one that would have like an outside shot, like the front court spot, would be Şengün. That's really just about it. He's been playing, I think, great. He's been their best player. But outside of that, I don't think there's anybody from that team that would have like a remote shot at making the All-Star team. Nobody else that I really could think about. I mean, I've been pushing the Desmond Bain agenda. I think Desmond Bain needs a shot. I've made some shots at All-Star game, but with 6 wins, I mean, it's tough to get a spot there, especially in a Western Conference where we have Fox, Booker, Shea, Luca, and all those guys. It's tough.
I agree with that. I think it's different. It's going to be interesting to see. I want to say when Ja gets back, if he's able to still sustain, that type of usage and be able to put up those type of numbers that he was putting up. Because he's averaging 26 on the season, but it's only leading to 6 wins, so it's not really nothing too crazy. But the play has been there. But outside of that, though, I don't think as of right now, as it stands, there hasn't been really much snubs. Because when you look at the Pelicans, Zion hasn't been really playing that great, and then Brandon Ingram, he's been pretty good for them as well, but nothing really stands out like that for him to have a case. But for Paul George missing it, there's still some opportunities, man. There's still a lot of time left before that All-Star voting opens up. But outside of that, maybe the Kings with Sabonis, they might try to argue for him, but it's nothing really as of right now screams snub for All-Star. But as we get closer to that All-Star game in February, the conversation may be a little bit different. So, we're just going to have to wait and see on that. But our last discussion for tonight would just be kind of similar to what we do for the NFL season week by week, but we'll just do it so far for the NBA season. We'll start off with biggest surprises, and then we'll move on to biggest disappointments.
Biggest surprises to me would definitely be the Orlando Magic. Like, I had them being a good team, like a solid. I think I had them maybe being a playing team, perhaps. Because last season they started off at 4-20 or 5-20 or something of that sort, and then ever since then, they've been locking in defensively. They've been absolutely phenomenal on that end. You have Jalen Suggs, you have Anthony Black, you have Paulo Franz. They have Goga Bidatse, or however you pronounce his last name. They have a lot of size in that starting lineup, and defensively they've been lights out. Offensively there's still some issues there, but they've been the biggest surprise to me. I think how they've just been performing. To me, that team has a lot of potential where they go. They just need to improve their spacing, maybe get in, some shooting into that starting lineup. But even then, I love what I see from that team. Biggest disappointment, it would have to be the Detroit Pistons, man. I think a lot of people had high expectations for this Detroit Pistons team. It's not a team where you look at it and they're not devoid of talent. They have a lot of lottery picks. They have Jaden Ivey. They have Asar Thompson. They have Cade Cunningham. They have Jalen Duren, who's been nursing an ankle injury. But even then, there's a lot of talent on this team, and for them to have this many bad performances and them to be on this amount of losing streak it's a huge disappointment. And when you look at this roster, I don't know what the direction is. Like, they literally have to rebuild the rebuild, which is crazy to me because they've been rebuilding for 5 years now. 7 years now since Blake Griffin left, and they barely made the playoffs. I think this team, when you look at it, they have pieces in place, but it's just not cohesive enough. And to talk about Cade Cunningham, I mean, he had 42 tonight, and I think his performances have been trending upwards these last 10 games or 8 games, whatever it's been. But even then, I don't think Cade Cunningham has been exactly what the Detroit Pistons envisioned him to be. He was called the next Luka, a generational do-it-all player, and I understand that there is spacing issues and there's not a lot of shot creation and not a lot of shooting next to him. But in the reality is when you draft a player like this, when you call him generational, when you talk about him like this, you have the expectation of him being the guy that can carry a roster, a guy that can uplift your entire team, a guy who can do it all. And Cade is just not built to do that, and that's okay. I think people need to realize the expectations of Cade were too high. He's not a Luka. Luka can do everything. You put Luka in any system or any offensive context or any environment, he can do it all. That's the point of a superstar talent. That's the point of a generational talent. Cade is not built to do that. He's not built to carry a roster because, for one, he's a height fisher. He's not 6'8". He's 6'6". The guy is not as tall as people claimed him to be. He's not that athletic. He's not a great finisher. He's been finishing better recently, but that's just the reality of things. And a lot of that comes down to Monty Williams. He didn't put a good roster in place. Not a lot of shooting, just a bunch of defensive guys. And I don't know. This Detroit Pistons team is a huge disappointment to me. I think it's just been disgusting basketball.
For me, biggest surprise, preseason I talked a lot of shit about Minnesota. I talked a lot of shit about them last year. This year I doubled down again, but to me, biggest surprise, them sitting at one of the best defenses in the league, one of the best offenses, them just meshing very well together. Gobert coming back, Cat, playing fantastic. You have Naz Reid coming off the bench, in 6 man of the year contention, the way he's been balling. And you have, Anthony Edwards and the other guys playing phenomenal. Me, I thought it was going to be the same issues that they had last year. Cat and Gobert not being able to play together, not being able to space the floor together, and defensively them struggling at times and, blowing up big leads and giving up big leads. So for them to come in this year to be consistent more on the defensive side of the ball, and then offensively, everybody just meshing. Everybody's getting their touches, and there's no complaints. I still want Cat to, get down low on the block and, go to work, but he tends to, drift out. He likes to play, likes to shoot the ball a lot, but it's working for them right now. Gobert's leading that defensive helm. So biggest surprise for me there. What I'd be said about Detroit Pistons sitting at 2-25 with that amount of young talent on that team. There's a lot going on. They gotta find something out. I feel like Monty keeps on losing games like this, he's about to get cut. I know he just got hired by the Pistons, but sooner or later, man, you can't keep on losing like this. Multiple years in a row, just losing, getting, top 5 picks, and it's going nowhere. You're supposed to rebuild with those top 5 picks that they're getting. I still haven't seen anything. It's been 4 years. It's like, how many more picks do you need? How much more talent do you need to make it work? I feel like, Monty's not the right coach for this team. So I feel like, they got to move on from him, and they got to trade some of these young pieces and try to cut this roster into a team that can compete. But we'll see what happens with them.
For me, I'll still go ahead and start off with my biggest surprise. When I go ahead and look back at my preseason predictions and my standing predictions before the season started, I didn't necessarily have this OKC team pretty high. Now they sit at the number 2 seed, and I can't lie, they've played the Warriors about 4 or 5 times now, so that I've watched a lot of matchups between those two teams, and they've just looked like a phenomenal team altogether. And it's led by Shea. SG has been balling out, definitely deserving of an MVP shout as of this point in the NBA season, and they've just really been playing fluid basketball. They've been a very solid team all around. A lot of the pieces have been fitting and working pretty well. Outside of Josh Giddey, though, I know, Abdi, you have your thoughts about that guy. He's probably not your favorite player at this point in time, but overall, outside of him, everybody else has been stepping up and doing their job. And Chet, man, that's one of the few guys that surprises me so far this season. Last year, I've had a lot to say about Chet on the air, off the air. Wasn't necessarily the biggest fan about him. I did say a couple years from now he'd be at Walgreens and sleeping floors on aisle 3, but he's done a phenomenal job with this team so far, man, doing what he's asked to do, and everything that you said, Abdi, that's exactly what he's doing each and every night, being that help side defender with all these blocks and things of that nature. And so I do have to give you credit there. And then for me, my biggest disappointment also kind of ties back into what my preseason prediction was. This Washington Wizards team, man. I thought these guys were going to be a fun team to watch. I thought, Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma were going to put on a show in Washington. Not necessarily.
They've been fun to watch, but just not fun in the way we think of fun.
Yeah, it's just not.
You got dudes slipping and sliding.
Like it's just laughable when you watch these guys. If you want to have a good laugh, you put on a Washington Wizards basketball game, and you're gonna have a fun time for 48 minutes for 3 hours in real time. Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, the guys that I thought were gonna put on the show in this Washington Wizards team, have been. Kuzma, I'll give him some credit. He's been pretty solid for them, but Jordan Poole just hasn't been the player that I thought he was. Ever since he left Golden State, I've always been a Jordan Poole supporter, but his talent just didn't necessarily carry over to this Washington team. He was supposed to be the number 1 guy on this team, and coming into the season, he was supposed to be averaging about 22, 24 points per game, being the lead scorer, and right now he's just about averaging about 17 points per game, and it's been a disgusting 17 points per game. Some nights he's not shooting the ball well, and other nights it's nothing's going for him at all. Even you add the shot, the playmaking, and all that stuff, just being the floor general and trying to run this team just hasn't been working out whatsoever. And so for these guys to be sitting with a record of 4-21 with guys like Jordan Poole on this roster, with guys like Kyle Kuzma on the roster, I'm not too sure what the Washington Wizards do here. I understand that they can, obviously just continue doing what they're doing and have a high draft pick. But, Kyle Kuzma is a guy that's probably going to be on the move real soon with the trade deadline approaching. But I'm not too sure how you're going to be able to get off that contract with Jordan Poole, who's going to be a buyer, especially knowing that you got off a Chris Paul contract that you had And now you're able to get a young guy on this team that's on a big contract, but we had high expectations for, but he just hasn't lived up to it. So, that's definitely my biggest disappointment because I had these guys at least competing for a playing spot. And now these guys are going to be in the lottery with the top 5 pick in this upcoming NBA draft. And so, definitely my biggest disappointment. Outside of that, nothing really stands out as we expected. The San Antonio Spurs are going to be a team that we're going to compete.
The Warriors have been a disappointment for you?
I would say I would say they're a disappointment for sure. It's kind of just adds on to what I was saying earlier, man. They just haven't necessarily played good basketball since the first 2 weeks of the season, and as a whole, it's been disappointing. But certain players on the team, like Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins, and of course Draymond Green with the antics, that's been disappointing as well. And especially knowing that Steph Curry is still playing at a top 5 level, and he's still playing at a top 5. He's still a top 5 talent in this league. The Warriors are just continuing to waste, whatever years they got left with Steph. Because when you look at it, Steph's going to be good for about 2 to 3 more years, and then maybe the fall off might happen. And you want to be able to capitalize on whatever's left with Steph in the tank, and they just haven't done that. But they don't necessarily sit in the worst spot, but it's all being below 500 isn't necessarily the best spot either. But there is opportunity for growth. And the one thing that I just hope the Warriors do as the trade deadline approaches, they just go ahead and be aggressive at the trade deadline. The Warriors are a team that's not known for being aggressive at the deadline. They just kind of stick with what they got. And now that they have, Mike Dunleavy as their GM and, there's this new regime, maybe it's going to be a different look, but I'm not too sure how they're going to be able to fix this thing up, man. It's not a good look right now. And I don't know how they're going to be able to move off of some of these contracts, but they're definitely one of my biggest disappointments. But the Washington Wizards have definitely topped my list. But aside from all of that, any final words before we sign off here?
Man, 25 games into the season, man. The NBA, hey, I definitely delivered on this product. I'm not going to lie. The in-season tournament, that was special hoops. I'll give him that. I think Adam Silver did a phenomenal job. I think for the play-in tournament, the in-season tournament, I think Adam Silver, hopefully the next thing that could, finally fix up is the All-Star game. So they did kind of go back to West versus East All-Star game, which I think everybody prefers. I was getting tired of these drafts where you had random players on different teams and stuff. So we're going to see how good the format is this year.
I got nothing to say, man. Basketball's been fun. In-season champs, baby. On the road to be NBA champs real soon. I don't know if your teams can say that, especially the guy to the top corner. So sorry for him.
We're both in the corner, so
no, top left.
You don't have to be specific though.
Yeah, NBA been fun this first 25 games, man. I know the second half is gonna ramp up, and especially during playoff time, we're gonna enjoy some great basketball.
How excited are you guys for Ja being back tomorrow?
I'm wearing a suit.
Call 12, Call 12.
I'm tuned in.
Bring the fire trucks out. We there.
Hey man, it's gonna be interesting to see how he comes out in hoops, man. But overall, the NBA product so far this season has been amazing. Of course, we've all been enjoying it. And as always, we're gonna have a lot more to talk about as this season goes on. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. For those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.